I'm an 18-year-old female and I work at a bakery, and it's not often that we get creepy people as customers, but the other day I was working at the register and an older man walked in. I always say hi, welcome, and how are you? And he didn't look at me or acknowledge what I said. He immediately pointed to a cookie and asked what flavor it was, to which I said the name of it. Then he asked what was all in it. I started listing out the ingredients and then he cut me off and said stop, all frustrated like. Then he finally looks at me and leans his face over the counter until he was about a foot away from my face and he says, "Wow, you really are a pretty girl. You're so attractive, you know that, right?" I just said thanks in monotone and looked down at the ordering screen because I felt very uncomfortable. But it gets worse. He then continues to say, "You must get that a lot, don't you? That you're so beautiful." And I said, no, not really. And he says, "Oh, well, you're such a beautiful girl. How old are you anyway? 14, 15? Surely you're 15, huh?" That's when my gut was telling me something is wrong with this dude. And I look up at him and say coldly, "No, I'm an adult." And he gets all antsy with his body language and says, "But what age?" And I said, "An adult," because I didn't trust him knowing my age. He already could see my name from the tags we wear on our hats, and that already made me feel nervous that he knows a piece of info about me, plus where I work. He then shook his head like he was disappointed and said, "Okay, well, you're just really attractive. I hope you know that." And I said, "Okay." And then he ordered really quickly and left. The POS gave his full name from his credit card after he placed his order, and my coworker and I looked up his name in the town that we're located in on a registered sex offender website. And it turns out he has a criminal record on it, which then made me feel sick to my stomach about the whole interaction he was trying to have with me. I encountered this man when I was 8, and next when I was 18. It was summer break and my family and I didn't go on a trip this year, unlike every break. I was just 8 years old and my younger sister was 3. We were playing along with other kids who lived in the same building as us, just on different floors. The building is not exactly an apartment building, it's more of a multi-storied house. The front gate is a bit further from there and the only entrance and exit of the building. So since we were downstairs and playing, anybody who would enter or exit the building would be visible to us. And we greet them because every tenant knows us and we know them, as well as their family members who might visit them. A new person visiting any tenant is rare but not impossible. Right adjacent to the big entrance gate is a small old style window with a grill, but it has a small opening at the bottom. We were all playing, but then I got tired and sat on one of the chairs placed at this porch-like thing, not sure what to call it, from where the window thing falls on my right side and I can see it as well as the gate clearly. I was just looking out when I noticed a man staring at the gate which looked similar to this. So basically he was able to look at my sister and friends through it. It concerned me when I realized that he wasn't even trying to look away and just staring at them blankly. I turned around from where I was sitting to signal my friend to move to the other side away from his sight, which he didn't understand. Frustrated, I turned back and was about to stand up when my gaze fell on the guy, and he was now staring at me. My body froze and I could feel fear creeping up on me. I couldn't move. I don't know why I stared back at him, and suddenly he started smiling. And when I say smiling, I mean full-on grinning from ear to ear. That scared the soul out of me and I mustered some courage, got up and ran towards my friends. I didn't tell them anything, I just asked them to go upstairs with me, which thankfully they did without questioning. I didn't say anything about this to my parents because I thought they would stop me from going downstairs to play. The next day we again came to play and I looked through the window just to make sure he wasn't there. Fortunately he wasn't, or so I thought. 15 minutes in and I spot that guy again. He was again standing at the very spot and staring at us. At me. I tried to play it cool because my friends knew nothing about him, but I couldn't for long and we went back again. From what I remember, this happened for 3 to 4 days, and now my friend's complaining about how I don't let them play, and that they have to come back earlier than they are supposed to. On the 5th day, I made up my mind to not pay attention to him and just focus on playing. We were playing cricket that evening and I was batting. I hit the ball hard, causing it to go over the gate, which was a very normal thing, and as the rules made by us, the one responsible must fetch the ball. My heart started beating because I could see his grin getting wider and creepier. He went towards the ball on the road and picked it up. He then held his hand out gesturing to come and take it. I was scared shitless at this point, but I had to go, so I did. As soon as I reached to take the ball from his hand, he bent down, coming close to my ear, and his words are still ringing clearly in my ears to this day. "I'm a good man. Look out the window when you go inside. I'll have something for you." This is a rough translation in English. It sounded much worse. That sent shivers down my spine and I ran at the speed of light. After we were done playing, I saw him sliding a piece of paper from that little opening. He then looked at me, grinned, and waved goodbye. I grabbed the paper and opened it. He had written his phone number and asked me to call him at 2 p.m. sharp in the afternoon, and that he knew my parents would be asleep by that time. It was also written that if I don't do it, my friends' lives would be in danger. As an 8-year-old, I didn't know any better, so I called him through my mother's phone. He picked up the call and I didn't have the courage to say anything, so I was silent. He said, "You're a good girl. You should come stay with me. Come outside, I'm waiting to pick you up." Because I lived upstairs, I went to the balcony, and he was actually standing near the gate, looking directly at me, waving and smiling. I couldn't contain it anymore, so I started crying and disconnected the call. I ran inside and bawled my eyes out in my room. Thankfully, my mother didn't wake, and I cried it all out. I didn't go for the next few weeks, and everybody kept asking me about it, and I still didn't tell them though. That guy stopped coming too. I don't remember the time he stopped, but he did, and I was relieved. Eventually, this experience started fading as I grew up. Fast forward to 10 years. Now I was 18 and my mother asked me to buy some snacks. I took my sister and went out. The shop I had to go to was at the end of the road, several houses away, so not too far. I was standing in a queue when I felt uncomfortable because of the man standing behind me, because he kept pushing me. Annoyed, I looked at him, only to realize it was the same man. My face went pale and I could feel my heart throbbing in my throat. I tried not to panic and calm myself down by telling myself that he couldn't do anything in public, that there were tons of people there, and that gave me a sense of security. As soon as my order came, I took out my wallet hastily to pay, but he beat me to it. The owner looked at him weirdly and then at me, because I was a regular there and he was seeing this man for the first time. I paid for it anyway, and the owner politely asked him to take his money back. I gave the bag to my sister and asked her to go home and to inform our mom about a man following us. Just in case he attacks, I'll have a backing and she would be safe too. Our house is within the vision range of the shop, so I waited for her to get inside, and now it was my turn to go home. As soon as I stepped out, the man followed me and said something like, "You're a beautiful lady now, let's catch up." Again, another rough translation. I kept walking and walking, but now that we were far from the shop, he started speed walking and I had to walk faster. I could feel goosebumps all over my body. I started running, and I could see him catching up to my speed when the owner called for him loudly, saying that some of his money was still at the counter, and asked him to come back, which gave me enough time to get inside and lock the gate. I haven't seen him since that day, and it's been 2 years. I'm 20 right now, and I hope to never meet him again in the future. I hope I never see him again, and I don't know why it has instilled a paranoia in me, and I dread seeing him when I turn 28. Edit. I told my mom everything after that because my dad lives in another city for work. I didn't tell him since it would make him hella worried and possibly affect his work. My distant uncle is a local cop. He's quite close and trustworthy. We tried finding the creepy guy after that but couldn't. He literally vanished in thin air. We also asked the shop owner about him, but he said the guy came back, took his money and went away. Nobody else paid enough attention to this guy, so we couldn't find anything. I go to college by public transport, so I have to walk around 1 kilometer to reach the stop. I take the other road, which is opposite to the road that leads me to the shop. It takes longer comparatively, but I feel better at least. Not once have I seen that guy or felt anything creepy since, which is a relief. But again, I'm kind of paranoid every time I step out, though I do carry pepper spray and a sharp keychain with me all the time. After moving out, we cannot afford that just yet. Possibly after I complete my degree, which is still 3 years left. When I finished university, I moved back home until I found a job. As soon as I could afford to, I set up a profile on the website Spare Room. I was contacted by James, who had a room to rent on the outskirts of the town that I worked in. It sounded good, but he wanted to talk on the phone before inviting me to view it. We had a chat one evening, and it turned out that we had some things in common. We both enjoyed fitness, particularly swimming, and we were both movie buffs. By the end of the call, it had felt like chatting to an old friend, and I was looking forward to meeting him. James didn't specify his age, but I assumed he was in his 20s like me. When I went to view the property, he actually came out of the house next door to greet me. When he introduced himself as James, I was pretty shocked. He was at least 50, dressed quite conservatively, and looked like he was wearing a hairpiece. If he told me on the phone that he was in his early 20s, I wouldn't have questioned it. I went ahead with the viewing, but I had already decided I didn't want to rent a room from him. I wanted to live with people who were a similar age to me. I was also put off by the house decor, which looked like it hadn't changed since the 80s. When I viewed the bedroom, it looked like it was occupied by a young person. There were several pairs of trainers and a game console. James said that the previous tenant, Mark, was moving to London for work. Coincidentally, my name was Mark too. James invited me to sit in the living room after the house tour. I didn't want to be rude, so I did. He explained that he cared for his elderly mother who lived next door. Then he started complimenting my style, saying I looked cool. He proceeded to put his hand on my leg, which made me feel very uncomfortable. When he asked if I was interested in the room, I said that I had some other properties to view, but that I would be in touch. I then made my excuses to leave. Everything about him screamed red flag. I just wanted to get out of that house. As soon as I was back in my car, I called my mom to tell her how freaked out I was and I absolutely would not be living there. James would text me a few days later to ask if I had thought any more about moving in. I lied and said that I found somewhere closer to town. I did eventually find something with some other young professionals, which turned out to be great. Some months later, our town was shocked by the news that a man's body had been found in the fields on the outskirts. He was later identified as Mark. I didn't think much of it until I saw that the murder suspect was his landlord, James. The same James whose house I viewed. I saw him on the news and got instant chills. He was later convicted of Mark's murder.